The sun was already beating down mercilessly by the time Aaron slipped on his worn-out shoes and tightened the laces that barely held together. He looked down at them for a moment, sighed, and whispered a small prayer under his breath. In his hand, he carried an old folder stuffed with documents, most of which were wrinkled from years of handling. It wasn't just paper, it carried his last hope. He stepped out of the small rented room he shared with his little daughter and started walking. 10 miles lay ahead. 10 miles that stood between him and the chance to finally rebuild a life that had crumbled piece by piece over the years. He had no car. His bicycle had broken months ago. And the little money he had was barely enough to keep food on the table for his daughter, Sophia. He couldn't even afford the bus fare. But he was determined. Determined to walk every step to reach that office. His shirt clung to his back with sweat as the heat rose from the pavement, and his legs felt heavy before the first mile was even done. Still, Aaron pushed forward. Each step echoed his unspoken plea: he couldn't afford to fail today. Not when his daughter's future depended on it. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength of the human spirit, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with others, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps spread more stories that touch the heart. Aaron had never imagined life would take such a turn. Once upon a time, he had a stable job at a warehouse, a modest home, and a wife who shared his dreams. But fate had its cruel ways. His wife fell sick, and after months of hospital visits, she passed away, leaving Aaron not only shattered but drowning in debt. The bills piled up faster than he could manage, and eventually, he lost the job too. Now, everything he did revolved around keeping his daughter safe, fed, and smiling despite the storm that surrounded them. As he walked along the road that cut through quiet neighborhoods, people in cars whizzed past him without a glance. To them, he was just another man on foot. But to Aaron, every passing vehicle felt like a reminder of what he had lost: the comfort of a working car, the dignity of not arriving drenched in sweat for an interview. He imagined how the receptionist might look at him when he walked in, his shoes dusty, his shirt creased, his face weary. Still, he refused to turn back. He rehearsed the answers he would give in his head, hoping his voice would not betray the desperation in his heart. On the other side of town, inside the tall glass building where Aaron was heading, a woman named Vanessa Cole sat by her office window. She was the CEO of one of the fastest-growing logistics companies in the city. To most, she was known as the Iron Lady, someone who made decisions with steel in her eyes and commanded boardrooms with effortless authority. But behind her strong presence was a woman who had fought her own battles, rising from poverty, raising herself through scholarships, and surviving a world that had never believed she could succeed. She never forgot her roots, though she rarely spoke of them. That morning, Vanessa had asked her driver to slow down while she reviewed her notes for the day. As the car rolled through a suburban stretch of road, her eyes had wandered, and that's when she noticed him. A man walking under the blazing sun, holding an old folder close to his chest as if it carried his life inside. She watched him from the tinted window, intrigued by his determined stride. Something about him felt familiar, like the fire she once carried when the world doubted her. She asked the driver to stop a few streets down, quietly observing as the man walked past, unaware that someone was watching. Aaron finally reached the building just minutes before his scheduled time. His shirt clung to him, his throat was parched, and his legs trembled, but his spirit held firm. He washed his face in the restroom, straightened his collar, and walked into the lobby. The receptionist gave him a polite but puzzled look, noticing his tired appearance, but Aaron managed a small smile. He sat down, waiting, rehearsing silently again and again. Inside the conference room, Vanessa stepped in. She held the file of applicants in her hand but didn't need to check to know who she was most curious about. When Aaron walked in, his eyes widened slightly, recognizing her as the woman he had seen in the car window earlier. He hadn't known then who she was, but now, sitting across the table, he realized he was face to face with the CEO herself. The interview began. Aaron spoke honestly, sharing his past experience, his skills, and his willingness to work harder than anyone else. He didn't hide the fact that he had been struggling, that he had been out of work, that life had not been kind. His voice cracked when he mentioned his daughter, Sophia, and how every step he took was for her. He didn't embellish or try to impress with fancy words, he simply laid bare the truth of a man who had nothing left but determination. Vanessa listened intently. She could see past the worn shoes, the sweat, and the exhaustion. She saw the resilience, the quiet strength, and the love of a father who would walk 10 miles in the sun just to fight for his child's future. The room was silent for a moment after Aaron finished, and though he feared he had said too much, Vanessa's heart was moved. She saw in him not just an employee but a reflection of her younger self, the one who had walked long roads with nothing but hope in her pocket. The rest of the interview passed in a blur. Aaron left the room unsure of how he had done. He walked back to the bus stop this time, hoping he had made enough of an impression. He didn't even realize that Vanessa had already made her decision. By the time he reached home and hugged Sophia tightly, a phone call rang. It was the company, offering him the position, not just any position, but one that came with enough pay to rebuild, to finally stand tall again. The next morning, when Aaron reported to work, Vanessa called him into her office. She didn't reveal that she had seen him walking that day. Instead, she spoke to him about hard work, resilience, and second chances. She told him that people who fight against the odds often become the strongest pillars of any company. As Aaron listened, his eyes filled with tears of gratitude. For the first time in years, he felt that the weight on his shoulders was lifting, that the future for his daughter was brighter. Weeks passed, and Aaron thrived in his role. He worked long hours but never complained. Every evening, he would return home to Sophia, carrying not just food and essentials but stories of hope and progress. Vanessa would occasionally see him from her office, walking with his head held higher than before. She never admitted it aloud, but she felt proud to have given someone like him a chance. In truth, she believed he had earned it long before he ever stepped into her office, when he chose to walk those 10 miles instead of giving up. The story of Aaron's walk eventually spread quietly within the company. Employees began to respect him not just as a coworker but as an inspiration. They whispered about the men who had walked under the burning sun, carrying nothing but determination, and won the heart of the CEO without even realizing it. And though Aaron remained humble, his journey reminded everyone that sometimes the greatest victories begin with the hardest steps. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with friends and family, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and leave a comment. Your support helps us keep bringing stories of kindness, hope, and second chances to the world. Special request: comment below with the words "Hope lives here" if you believe in resilience, second chances, and the power of never giving up. Aaron's life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still bills, still challenges, still days of exhaustion. But now, there was also stability, dignity, and the knowledge that he wasn't walking alone anymore. Every time he looked at Sophia's smiling face, he knew those 10 miles had been worth every step. And somewhere in her corner office, Vanessa Cole smiled too, knowing she had witnessed something extraordinary, a single father who walked not just for a job but for love, for hope, and for the unbreakable bond between parent and child.